Suge Knight was behind the hit.
Police working in the organization.
They were everywhere.
Shocking allegations.
They did what Suge told them to do.
He gets in his face, he says, keep your mouth shut. You were told not to talk about that.
Quite a fall for Knight since the height of his career.
I was there that night Biggie got killed.
So unreal.
Karma's a mother, and he's paying for it.
Nick Broomfield, how are you?
Good, I'm great, yeah, and very pleased that Last Man Standing's coming out. And, you know, it was great to go back to the subject of Biggie and Tupac, which is still unresolved after, 20 odd years.
You want to set it off? People started talking more freely since Suge's incarceration about the shadow behind Biggie Smalls and Tupac Shakur's murders.
They don't have to be on camera if they don't want to be on camera. We just record their voice.
All right. People were now opening up to things I couldn't get answered before.
I would put money on LAPD's involvement.
Many of the people have kept a secret for 24 years.
I don't know if he did this, but he was there.
Well, the first one, Biggie and Tupac, is currently on the BBC iPlayer. For those that may not have seen it, it's astounding to me that it's been 20 years or so. 30th of June. This is pretty exciting. You're doing a cinema release all across the UK for your documentary. I don't know if you ever get used to having your documentaries in cinemas, because it's quite a special and rare thing to happen. How does that feel?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's great. Well, it's always a bit, it's a bit like getting stage fright, I think. You're always a bit nervous. Yeah. You want it to do well. You don't want, you want people to love the film or at least get something out of it. I guess you like that. It's a bit like the circus pulls into town and how many people are going to show up and is it going to be fun and, you're going to give something to people. And I think the film comes up with a lot of new material, people who never wanted to talk before, people who were frightened to talk before Suge Knight went to prison. Even gang members who worked for Suge Knight at death row have come out and talked. Yeah. And Tupac's manager, Layla Steinberg, who knew both the police officer who is alleged to have done the hit on Biggie Smalls and obviously knew Tupac incredibly well. She came out for the first time and talked about what she knew. So, it was a good film to go back to and make. And I felt that the police officer who originally alleged that LA police officers were involved in the hit, Russell Poole, he was very discredited, and it was great to be able to prove him to be right all along.
It brings me to tears, thinking what could have been.
Wasn't no scattered bullet holes. That was a pro. There were attempts at the highest level to make things disappear.
Who could do this and get away with it?
Well, now we do. My game run deep, Tupacalypse don't sleep.
There's a lot of people lost their lives.
Come on now. Lives were lost as a result of what?
Out here, you don't know who you're messing with.
I keep a Glock in my car. I gotta be the star.
The streets are controlled by the biggest gang that we have, the police.
It felt like you were a bit of a detective this time round, and it felt to me more like it was about, let's really tell the story that we don't always see. The LAPD are really responsible for a bigger problem here, which we're talking about at the moment anyway, about the way black people, even black celebrities, are treated in the US. And then this side plot, Russell, this character, Russell Poole, this guy that was like almost let out to hang and ridiculed and seen as like, what an idiot, and almost made a joke off by some people and questioned for what he really believed in. And I thought, I was really sad to hear that he passed away recently, and I thought in a way it felt like you really wanted to honour this man and as a detective prove his theory was right.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I took, in a way, this film is more serious in a way than the last one, less kind of buffooning around. I think Russell was very let down by the LAPD, and I think, Netflix put on this series called Murder Rap, which came up with a completely ridiculous theory, discrediting Russell, saying that a gang member called Poochie was involved. And I spoke to, a lot of Poochie's friends who also said that's ridiculous. And also the FBI did their own investigation and supported Russell's theories that the LAPD were involved. So needless to say, it was an LAPD officer who actually came up with the theory about Poochie
Right.
and discrediting Russell, and actually, was the guy behind Murder Rap. So I just felt there was a lot of irresponsible journalism too, where, in a few years ago, there was a lot of fact checking in journalism, and
Yeah.
films wouldn't go out unless they were really believed to be true. I felt Netflix was pretty irresponsible putting that film out. And although it took a lot for me to remake a film or revisit a film that I'd done over 20 years ago, but I was kind of pissed off with what had happened. And I just thought, I'm going to get back into this. I know what Russell said was true. And I think there's been a lot of bad behavior since then. So I made Last Man Standing.
And I'm glad you did, because it felt like that. It did feel like, you say Last Man Standing, but it felt like one man is on a mission for justice. And it was more than just Biggie and Tupac. It was like Nick Broomfield is now 20 years on. He's had this incredibly successful career. And it's fair to say, probably used to certain comforts. Now he's going back. So this is either going to be really difficult or cathartic, or he's on a mission. Because there was that side of it as well for me, because I was thinking he's in Compton. He's got this awesome producer, Pam, who's obviously the eyes and the ears on the streets, and he's in.
Right.
But even so, you're going back to a time that you've absolutely grown from. So as a documentary maker as well, there must have been times where you were like, oh my God, what am I doing?
I know. I mean, I did feel I was on a mission, and it's such a complicated story too, with so many ins and outs, and just trying to simplify it enough so people who don't really know the whole story don't get completely alienated by too many facts was a real job. But also I really wanted to get to the nuts and bolts of it. And, the LAPD were alleging that these policemen had never worked at death row. So I went back and met all these sort of old gangsters and hoodlums who hung out at death row and went. And they said, oh yeah, we know them. They used to hang out. We go and pick up,
Mm-hmm.
So that was all kind of hilarious. And, and you meet some great people who you wouldn't meet before, but it's a tough world, that world. So it was a big effort going back into it. I mean, there were so many people killed. There were so many people whose lives, were kind of hit rock bottom under Suge Knight and the sort of reign of terror. And I think so many people were traumatized by the deaths of Tupac and Biggie. So it was difficult for them to revisit it too. But I think it's worth it. And I hope it clears the air.